Okay, today we are going to see Petrosian move by move, and the interesting thing about this book is that they tried to find the fourth recorded game by Petrosian, and it seems it's a game that Petrosian played against Salo Floor in 1942 in a Simon in Tbilisi. Now, why this game is interesting? Well, of course, in that moment Petrosian was just 13 years old, so not much, right? Definitely not a master level player. Yet he was able to beat Salo Floor, that he was one of the top player of the period. Why? Because in the 1940s Salo Floor was one of the best 8 players in the world, and in 1937-38 he tried to make a match with I think Alekin, but unfortunately, you know, it was that period that the war started, so clearly it was a mess for a lot of people. In any case, let's start right away. d4, knight f6, c4, e5, and this is the Budapest defense, okay? d takes e5 and knight g4. So Petrosian is white, right? The thing is, and this is why I wanted to show you this game in particular, because I want to show you how you really cross-reference with other books, and that's why you need chess books, because you can actually study at a deep level. And many people don't understand this. They just want, oh, I want to become a grandmaster, but they don't actually want to put the time to study and to deepen the knowledge of the game. So here in this book there is a question: why was the opening baptized the Budapest defense? And the answer here is there are two connections with Budapest. A game was played with the opening between between Adler and Maroczy in Budapest in 1896. While the Hungarian player Gyula Breyer used it in tournament in Budapest in 1916. So now comes the connection, right? They tell you, oh, Adler and Maroczy played it in Budapest for the fourth time, maybe, in 1896. So what do? We have a book about Maroczy, and we can go to see if it's true. And I found the game, right? Because game number 21 of this book is between Adler and Maroczy. So that's the part you want to know. And not only that, okay, sorry if I cannot show you well, let me see, no, I can't. Here you also see the picture of the player. So that's the interesting find, no, in this case. So this game that was played in 1896, March 5th, 1896. Can you imagine? This is the great thing of chess. You have a time machine, you can now move through time and location and be in Budapest. So we were in Tbilisi, in Georgia, and now we move to Budapest in Hungary, right? So let me check one thing. Okay, so we have Adler Maroczy. This game would demonstrate that it was likely Maroczy who first played by transposition the defense name after the Hungarian capital. There were those who call it a gambit, and some even call it Breyer's brainchild. Why Breyer? Because there was another important player, Gyula Breyer, that played this opening, okay? And after I will show you also that, because then you not only discover something about this opening, but much more, okay? However, since it is not a game that was played under tournament condition, and Maroczy himself published it almost a half-century later, he did not claim that the defense should be named after him. In reality, from the book about Breyer, you will discover that probably this defense has been played before them. And why do I tell you that? Because I said it also in another video. We often think that the openings have a certain name, but it's not true, because if you study the history of a game, you will find that someone played it before. However, in here there is a kind of transposition. c4, knight f6, d4, e5. And here we have the Budapest gambit, right? D takes e5, knight g4. The problem is that is it really a gambit if you are going to get back the pawn? I don't know. Knight f3, bishop c5. So here we are watching Adler-Maroczy, okay? Played in 1896. As you can see, he's pointing at here, so obviously you need to defend it in some ways, but once you defend this, you block this from getting out, right? And now we have knight c6. So as you can see, by this moment, the opening was kind of successful for black. Why? Because he has 1, 2, 3 pieces out against white only one. So not bad, right? Queen d5, attacking the bishop c5, right? Queen e7, so taking another piece out, because again, that's what you want to do, right? You want to bring all your pieces out in the opening. Knight c3, knight g takes e5, and bishop e2. Now, this move maybe is not great. Probably it was better to play something like this, because this square is left open, so you don't want really to do that, but okay. Bishop e2, d6. So now black wants to bring out also the other bishop, and here there is a mistake. The move is knight e4. Can you see how black continue here? Black continue with bishop e6. Why bishop e6? Because obviously, as you can see, black practically has finished the development. He just need to castle. White instead is just continuously moving this queen, which proves to be a waste of tempi, right? So queen d1 goes back, and bishop b4 check. You will see that it makes sense not to take the pawn c4. You will see why, okay? Bishop d2, castle, bishop takes b4, knight takes b4, and here there is another dubious move by white that plays queen b3. Probably it was better to take on e5 fourth. Why? You will see now. Because now black takes on f3, bishop takes on f3, and now there is the move that prove black to be correct, and is d5. d5 control this one while attacking and attacking, right? So what do you do here? He played knight e2, d takes e4, knight takes e4, another little mistake, and of course here black could have played b5, instead he played rook d3, queen a4, attacking probably there, attacking this, right, he thinks, I'm getting it back. No, bishop takes e4, queen takes a7, knight c2, king e2, and I hope that you now are able to see black giving checkmate. How does black give checkmate in this position? It just needs to go back one square. Rook d4, checkmate. Why checkmate? Because this rook keeps control of the d file. The king cannot go there because there is the knight, and he cannot go here because the bishop is still attacking it. So that's a checkmate. And this was a typical coffee house game. So the author here says one can smell the scent of coffee in the air, but the point is that thanks to this book we can immediately access that game from 1896. Now I want to show you, because we are doing some historical research also. Practically, you know guys, when I read a book like this, I try to understand if what the author tells me is true or not. And how do you do that? You can only do that if you have enough books in your library to actually test the argument of the author, right? In this case, in this huge, big book that if you throw it on the head of someone you will definitely do damage, there is at page 369 the fourth game played by Gyula Breyer with the Budapest defense. Now I will show you this game because also this one is very fast and exciting, but the point is not even that. The point is the discussion that ensue after, which prove that there is a dispute about the origin of this Budapest defense. And you discover that probably none of the two, Marozzi or Gyula Breyer, are the one who played the Budapest defense fort. So obviously this is not the topic of the video, because the topic of the video was to show you the fourth game played by Petrosian, right? But as you can see, chess is much more than just watching a game. There is history, and we have a chance to go throughout history thanks to books. So if you don't have books, you will not be able to understand the chess history, okay? Because some things are mentioned only in books, and that's the fact, unfortunately. Game 149 is played between Johannes Esser and Gyula Breyer. Gyula Breyer obviously is black, and I'm showing you this game from the white side because honestly I'm not really using it to teach you something, but it's more about the history lesson. The fact that in a few seconds, guys, I was able to bring you from 1896 to 1916, right? And so this is called the Four Masters Tournament. The notes are by Tartakover. d4, knight f6. So we have a young master who swear on oath that this move is better than the routine d5. So imagine in 1916 they also have this kind of dispute. that some people said d5 was better than knight f6. Instead, the Breyer said no, knight f6 is the move to play. Okay? Because in contrast to that pawn move, which cannot be retracted, black will not now be bound to any one system of development. Yeah, so practically with knight f6 you don't know what black is going to do after, right? Because when you play c4, black could play g6, black could play e6, black could play b6, black could play c5. There are much more possibilities. Instead, on d5, c4, the things kind of become, you just have to do this or this, but you cannot really do much different. At least in that time. In that time it was thought to be like that, right? Today, thanks to computer, we have explored the openings quite deeper. So Esser continues with c4, and here there is a note. It says, white does not notice black's threatened reply. e5. And here it says, according to the latest analysis, this bizarre move seems to be suitable for those seeking a satisfactory defense to the queen's gambit, and represent the backbone of a new kind of counterplay. It stems from our editor, who has thoroughly analyzed it jointly with Master Barash and Breyer. So probably the editor is Tartakova, I think. Whence comes the name of a Budapest defense. D takes e5, knight g4, and here there is queen d4. Notice that the author of this book, which is Jimmy Adams, really did a big job, a really big work. Jimmy Adams is kind of famous for this kind of historical books, to tell you the truth. And I'm really happy that I have it. So, if you have some money, please try to buy it, because Jimmy Adams really makes an amazing historical work. Why do I say that? Because in this game now, and we are just at move 4, there is a note from Deutsche Wochenschau. So he also found a magazine from 1916 that analyzed this game. So can you imagine the wealth of resources that you have with a book? Now, okay, you can say, oh, but I don't care, I use a computer. Yeah, but I don't use a computer. Why? Because it will make me lazy. Why a computer makes me lazy? Because it thinks for me. And yes, the computer is 100,000 times or even 1 million times or more better than me. I'm not saying that it's not better than me. But the thing is, I play against other humans over the board, and they have to use their own brain too. And when they have used too much the brain of a computer, they are not able to actually find the right moves, because again, makes them lazy. In any case, the Deutsche Wochenschau says that on knight f3 there was bishop c5, which forces e3 and enables black to play knight c6, which we already saw in reality. We saw in the other game for Adler against Marozzi, right? So imagine how watching these games is already opening our mind to know what works, what doesn't, or what are the typical replies in this Budapest gambit or defense. By the way, I remember that I have a book, and maybe I also did a video about that. Yeah, okay, let's continue. Then we have the next move, and the next move is kind of interesting, because it's a kind of attacking move that tells a lot upon what's gonna happen here. The move is h5. And here there are another note by Tartakova this time that says, simpler according to Shackler is d6. You should play for Shackler d6. So as you can see, all the masters of that period were probably having subscriptions to these magazines in different languages, because maybe this was obviously printed in Magyar, right, the Hungarian language, and they were watching the games of the other masters and tried to make their own analysis, right? So after which h5, it continued with knight f3. This is the interesting part, which, by the way, I asked myself, what happened on h3? Because while I was talking, I said, but h5 doesn't seem really good, because there is h3. And here in the note, he answered my question. He says, black will play knight c6, which attack the queen. And as you can see, we see this trait of the master level game, that when they have a piece attack, what do? They attack something else. They don't really move that right away. They try to find a way to attack something else. Now, why it's important? Because after h3, knight c6, queen e4, now you really move this. Knight g takes e5. Okay? So that's a possibility that is kind of interesting, right? Okay, now let's continue with the game, because honestly I just want to show you this game with the idea that there was a dispute, and luckily Jimmy Adams really covers it, because practically there are something like more than 6 pages that tell you the history of the Budapest Gambit and who really played it forth. In the end, there is also another game, game 150 between Rubinstein and Widmar, that I think it is being used as example to prove how good the Budapest Gambit is. However, of today, I am not sure the Budapest Gambit is played often, if not only as a surprise weapon, because it seems in long-term control has been refuted, if I understood well. Because another grandmaster, the so-called the god of openings, especially about 1d4, told me that don't play the Budapest, otherwise you will lose. Okay. And I didn't play the Budapest. Okay. So after h5, knight f3, knight c6, attacking the queen d4, queen d5, we see again this move, but also if queen e4, there was a note that shows bishop b4, and is not bad for black. In any case, bishop b4 is a move that happened in the Budapest, and its continue is knight c3 and queen e7. As you can see, we continue to see the same patterns, the same moves, the same places where they put the pieces. That's kind of important for you guys, because when you want to learn an opening, you need to know in which squares the pieces are placed, because in this way they will not kick out, you will not waste tempi, and so on and so forth. Here white continue with bishop f4, is trying to hold on the pawn e5. Okay, and here there is a big note, but I honestly don't care to give you a big note. I want to go on and see this game b6, because after we still have to see the game between Petrosian and Floor. Okay, so after b6 there is h3 finally, and now we have 1, 2, 3 defending this, 1, 2, 3 attacking. You cannot take, obviously, right? So he has to go back, knight h6, and white continue with rook c1, bishop b7. This is already telling you something. Not only that black couldn't develop on this diagonal, but that black wants to castle on this side. Okay, so you already have this idea from that kind of move. a3, bishop takes e3, rook takes e3, castle, like I told you, e3, and rook d, g8. This is a good move, and here the note says a fine problem-like introduction to a well-calculated combination by black, which leads to the collapse of white's position. In the following moves, white is under the false impression that he will win a piece, but in the end he finds himself the victim of self-deception. Wow, very interesting, right? Let's see what happens. Bishop g5, f6. So this looks like a mistake, right? But it is not, because this move is the introduction of a decisive attack. E takes f6, G takes f6, and now what he told you about the piece that you lose. You see that the queen is attacking this, right? So obviously white takes, because if you take, you have lost this, right? But the things are a little more complicated, because after bishop takes h6, can you imagine what black will play? It's what we call Zwischenzug, right? And kind of intermediate move that solve the problem for black. In this case, the problem, like I told you, is you cannot take this without losing it, right? But there is a move you can do to avoid that, which is knight e5. Knight e5 attacks the queen, right? The queen must move, so this fall. Queen d4, and of course it's not finished. Knight takes f3, check. G takes f3, and what do you think black played? Obviously black played bishop takes f3, because he wants to take that rook. So white continue with rook h2, and now at this point black takes. So what is here the difference between the two positions? Because you say, okay, but the material is equal, right? Yeah, material is equal, but white's position is totally trash, right? And that's the real problem of this position. So let's see how it continue. Queen f4, attacking the bishop f3. Queen e4. This queen e4 is obviously kind of threatening. What does it threaten? A checkmate here, because after that you go here and queen d1 is checkmate, right? So obviously he cannot take on h6. So it was a double attack, right? It was attacking f3, but it was attacking also h6. And this queen e4 is threatening a checkmate, which is based on this, this, and this. Okay? So that's what you need to obviously train yourself to see. This kind of checkmating too that are very easily to see. Queen takes e4, bishop takes e4. Honestly, the position of this rook, like they say here in the book, is enough to lose the game, because it's really ugly. But let's see how white continue, okay? King e2, rook g1. Obviously this prevents this, because try to find it out. A little of the exercise must be done also by you guys, right? And here there was a mistake by white. he played c5. He's obviously trying to open the file for his rook, so he can try to do something, because as you can see, this piece is out of the game. It cannot go anywhere, right? This piece is out of the game too, because if you go here, it will take. So the only piece white has is this. So the black pieces are definitely more active and dominating than the white pieces. Bishop b7, c takes b6, a takes b6, and rook d3. Now this is a exchange sacrifice, right? Why? Because there is bishop a6, right? So bishop g2 is trying obviously to take out the pieces in some way, because otherwise it's not playing. So in a sense the opening has been a total success for black, right? Rook b1. Again, activity. Activity is the most important thing you can have in a chess game. Bishop e4, and rook takes b2. So as you can see, black at this point he has already a great advantage, but he made another mistake, which is the following. He played king f3, and after king f3 he loses the piece. Why? Because f5. Boom. You must not be afraid to sacrifice pawns, because that's what they are, soldiers, right? Cannon fodder, and cannon fodder must be sacrificed, unfortunately. Bishop takes f5, and of course rook f6, rook takes d7, and oh wow, there is a strong magnet there. Okay, so rook takes d7, rook takes f5, king here, and rook f takes f2, and so this is the end of the game, because white resigned. Why did white resign? Because as you can see, same number of pawns, but black has a bishop. Now, while I'm pretty sure that Breyer knew how to convert the position into a win, maybe you don't. So what you have to do right now is to play this position against an engine, right? Because an engine will not forgive any kind of mistakes, and you will see how difficult it's to convert. But if you are able to convert it as black and win, then you have gained some knowledge. Okay, so guys, again, in this book you will find all the discussion about the Budapest after this game, and so it's great just for that. But now we return to see Petrosian, okay? We return to see the game played by Petrosian against Floor. Let me pause for a second. Okay, so now that we have seen the Budapest Gambit, the history, we go back to the Petrosian Floor game that was played in 1942. So imagine, it was the middle of World War II, right? Sorry, d4, knight f6, Petrosian is white, so he sticks to d4, the best by test, c4, e5, d takes e5, and knight g4. Okay, and now we see something completely different in the way that the Budapest Gambit is fought. Generally, we have seen that white played queen d4, maybe knight f3, definitely bishop f4 has played, right? But Petrosian play e4. Imagine how good was this 12-13-year-old kid that already understood that you must not keep this pawn up to the end, but you must develop the pieces. That's what you want to do, right? And it seems h5 is a continuation here by Richard Reti, which lived from 1889 to 1929. Of course, the problem is that this continuation is kind of aggressive and keeps the knight in a kind of outpost, right, for what he can, because the problem of e4, yes, its development is I don't care about this, but is also attacking this, and if you forget that, you're going to pay, and sometimes people do forget, right? Okay, so h5 was played. Today they would play knight takes e5. That's what the author writes in the book, okay? After which, obviously, you continue with h3, and the game obviously continue with knight takes e5. At this point, as white, you have many choices, but our friend Petrosian clearly was sleeping with My System by Nintsovich or Chess Praxis under the pillow, like he said. Why? Because guess what? He plays bishop e3. Bishop e3 is a prophylactic move which prevents black from play bishop c5. That's why he played this. And that's kind of interesting, right? Knight bc6, because we are seeing someone 12-13-year-old in 1942 that so he didn't have all the resources that today a 12-year-old would have. Today a 12-year-old would be coached by a grandmaster like 3 times a week. Then he would have a chess base with 10 million games. Then you go on chess.com, on light chess, or whatever. So, and you have so many resources that is crazy. In that time, often they didn't have even books. In order to have games, they would collect them from newspapers, like Keres did, I think. He would collect them from newspaper in one little notebook. So imagine that, what they had in that time. So after knight bc6, white continues the development, right, with knight c3, and here black plays bishop b4 because it's the only way to exert some kind of pressure. White plays queen d2, which is also an interesting move because this queen d2, it's a little strange. It means that probably white doesn't want the double pawns on there if black takes. But not only that, I think queen d2 gives me the idea that white doesn't want to castle on the king side. And I think he doesn't want to castle on the king side because with h5 he feels already threatened, and then this will move, and so there is a direct attack on the castle, and so he doesn't want to castle on that way. But let's see what happened in the games. However, maybe also this move was a good move because it would avoid the pin on the queen, okay, and it would protect this. Just an idea. So d6, and here we see that I'm right because white plays f4. So this is a very aggressive move, but he also showed that he doesn't want to castle there because it's already weakening all that side, so I don't know. As always, here there are some questions in an exercise. For example, it says, how should floor react to the aggressive pawn move f2, f4? Well, this is kind of interesting, because if you make the mistake of playing queen h4, attacking the king, giving check, you could lose this piece. Why? Because there is bishop f2. So that's kind of interesting. And it tells us also one thing. Watch. This was maybe the idea of queen d2. That's why he played queen d2 and not queen c2, because he thought already that if you gave him check, he is able to do this without losing it. So that's probably the interesting idea behind queen d2, that we can see only now. Very interesting. Okay, in any case, floor continue with knight g6, but in reality there is a move for black that is counterintuitive, but it could be very good. Is knight d7. Why? Because it can go to c5 to put pressure on a4. Instead, in knight g6, the knight is kind of out of the game. White continue with knight f3, queen e7, bishop d3, and now black plays f5. f5 is a kind of mistake, because probably here in the book he says that it was better to try to exchange this weak and not very active knight with the central one. Again, this is the good thing that we have a book, right? Because the author, that is an international master, not only selected the games, but he tells us the blueprint and the ideas of how we should think during a game. So he's teaching us also positional chess. So if you're white, what is white best continuation to exploit black weakening f7, f5 pawn move? Well, here there was a very strong move, but Petrosian didn't find it. And again, he's a 13-year-old in a simul, so we don't know how much time he had. I also find strange that in the simul, floor didn't take white in all the games, because strangely he's black. Well, the strong move, I hope you pause the video and try to find it out, is knight g5. Here it says, is the strongest move exploiting the outpost on g5, from where important squares in black position are under white's observation. Okay, h7, f7, e6. At the same time, the attack pawn on e4 is defended comfortably. Strong moves normally have more than one idea connected with them. Instead, unfortunately, Petrosian played e takes f5. And black, because once you play e takes f5, this is pin, right? And this is called an absolute pin. Why? Because behind there is the king, so you cannot move it, you cannot lose something in order to move it. Black plays knight takes f4. So what is the problem here? So why e takes f5 was wrong? Because this piece, the knight g6, he was passive, and now it's active and is attacking white. So that's why e takes f5 was wrong. So I hope that clarified. After which white plays castle, so this is on pin, but black immediately takes on c3. And after b takes c3, because he cannot let go of a bishop e3, that is attack, black plays knight takes d3. queen takes d3, and now finally it's black returning the favor. The best continuation here was bishop takes f5. Why? Because after queen takes f5, queen takes e3, king c2, and rook f8, attacking the queen. This would have given black a comfortable position, but honestly the line given by the author it's longer than this. It practically reaches like move 22. We are at move 15. I don't think Floor could obviously see 7 moves in advance. That's simply impossible, right? So because in a simul you just have few seconds and you have to move. So Floor played bishop d7, which honestly is considered bad, but maybe because it's just a computer evaluation based on what the computer found. Yes, a computer would have found a 7 moves line in a fraction of a second, but a human being, no. That's kind of impossible, right? White continue with rook h e1. Also in this case could have been stronger to play bishop g5, eventually check all the notes in the book. Black plays a mistake because he castle on this side. Why castle on this side? Because this seems safer. Yes, but the problem is that he puts the rook in the same square of the queen, which can be attacked by the bishop. So it was better to play castle on this side, but this is very damaged as a castle, and so a human automatically reject it, and instead this seems safer, but the problem, as you can see, is this, bishop g5. After which there is queen f7, bishop takes d8, rook takes d8, and white continue the attack with g4. At this point, honestly, black more or less has already lost the game. Why? Because there is no compensation for the exchange. That's the reality of it. But this is a Floor, Salo Floor, a guy that has played matches with Botvinnik, and so he is not giving up very easily. Okay, and so he tries to activate his pieces with knight a5. And now I can tell you that the author asks you a simple question. He says, can you suggest a simple winning continuation for white? Honestly, once you have a material advantage, what you do is to exchange the pieces. Why? Because once you exchange all the pieces, you automatically enter in an endgame that you can win. And so the right move is queen d5. Queen takes d5, c takes d5, and here we have rook f8. This is an interesting move, but the problem is, and you would discover it if you read Nintsovich, that the 7th rank is one of the most important things. And here we have rook e7. So he's taking control of the 7th rank. g6, and this is even more crazy for you guys, because maybe you don't know how this would continue, right? Because you say, haha, but then he will take there. Yeah, and who cares? He plays this immediately. Because if you take there, you have lost. You are not going to stop that pawn no matter what, and this pawn is becoming queen. Notice that when there are 2 pawns on the 6th rank or on the 4th, and they are together, they are value at least a rook. Okay, so that's the reality of it. Black continue with h take g4, but Petrosian is unstoppable. He plays g7 because honestly a queen trumps everybody else. Rook g8, oops, and rook f7. Of course, it would make more sense to say that knight with knight d4 because he can jump on here, or to bring the rook into the game. But again, at this point you already have kind of won the game, honestly. So bishop e8, rook f8, takes and takes. Like I told you, it would have been better to bring that other rook in the game, but it's over, honestly. King d7, rook e3, g takes f3, and rook takes f3. And here there is a question: is white winning? And the answer is white is winning, but it will take some time because of black compact position and strong knight, which will soon appear on e5. Patience is a necessary quality when winning games, and honestly the Iron Tigran, the famous Tigran Petrosian, surely had a lot of patience, right? Knight c4, rook d f1, knight e5, rook e3, and rook h7. So black is trying to stop the advance of the passed pawn, but I don't think he really can. Why? Because white has two rooks, and two rooks are really strong. Look, rook f4, c6, c4, because he wants to continue to keep everything blocked, and black plays king c7, king b2. Here he says that it was better to play c5, undermining this. Okay, but we don't care because in any case he is winning. Rook b6, d takes c6, b takes c6, and king c3, king c5, and now there is h4. Here black tries to go on b7 to see if he can probably do something, but I don't believe so. White plays rook g3. Generally, you guys, there is a principle by Tarrasch. If you would have watched that collection of 300 games by Tarrasch, you would know it. The principle is that the rook belongs to behind the passed pawn. So the right move was this. But again, Petrosian was just 12 or 13, okay? So we can excuse him for that. a6, and now the game is over. Why? Watch this. h5, rook h7, rook g5, pinning this, a5, rook f6. As you can see, he's bringing up the pawn, and is also a good example because it's a kind of technique you can use in your own games. Rook b7, h6, rook b1, now he's going behind, trying to give endless check, but he can't. Rook h5, rook c1, king d2. And now there is rook a1, and the final move of the game is h7, winning the game. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game from Petrosian move by move. As you can see, we had an excursion in this wonderful historical chess in Budapest, thanks to the game Adler Marozzi and then Essen or Esser Breyer. And as you can see, the more books you have and the more connection between dots you can make when you read a book. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.